Yes, good evening, dear viewers. You are watching us live on GMEB TV, broadcasting at our main studio in Banjul. As today is African Liberation Day. On our show today, dialogue, rebuilding our nation through dialogue. Today, we have a very important guest, and then we will be discussing with him on issues regarding African Liberation Day. Our show is always live at GMEB every Saturday and Wednesday, 6 to 8 o'clock. Uh, Rebuilding our nation through dialogue. We believe that dialogue is only the possible way to rebuild a nation. And that is why every weekend we will bring you live discussion on issues within our nation. Today we have a very important guest here by the name Honorable Bran Sala. Bran, you are welcome to GMTV TV.
Thank you so much, Ismaila, and thank you for having me. It is indeed a great pleasure, having me in GMTV live broadcasting at Bangulinde.
Thank you very much. As today is African Liberation Day, all Africans across the soil of Africa are all celebrating this day, rejoicing. Before we get to the topic, our viewers would like to know who is Bran Sala. You can kindly give us a thorough introduction about yourself.
Thank you so much. Like I said earlier, my name is Biran B. Sala or Biran Sala. I am a second year student of the Gambia College School of Education, and also, pursuing advanced diploma secondary in education, major in English, language and social and environmental studies. Like many of the things that will be said, I most of the time, more alert in nation building issues, more especially political issues.
Absolutely.
And then one time presidential contestants, during the past STA or Student Teachers Association.
That's great.
Yeah.
Yes, Honorable Brian Sala, thank you very much for that brief introduction. We are indeed thrilled to have you here, and I look forward for us to have a very interesting discussion regarding Africa Liberation Day. When we say Africa Liberation Day, what are the things that come to your mind?
Thank you so much again. We believe African Liberation Day, or we can say African Freedom Day, because liberation comes with freedom.
Absolutely.
It has to do, we have to first look at what freedoms entails today. Because we understand as early as the late 15th centuries,
exactly,
going towards in the 16th, 17th, 18th, there were what we call many colonial penetrations that took place in the continent.
Exactly.
And we remember also history will remind us that early as 1884,
sure,
towards 1885,
sure,
that when European powers sat down one time in Berlin, that is what they call the Berlin Conference.
Sure.
There was the scramble and the partition of Africa.
Sure.
European powers, in which British, the French, the Germans, the Portuguese, and many of the other European powers were not exception.
Exactly.
Sat down at the dining table, whining and dining, and brought African into their control.
Exactly.
So this control was economic control, it was political control, it was religious control, social control, and many other factors that brought African under colonial subjugations.
Exactly.
So years passes also, or we can say also centuries passes, when Africa decided also to fight back and make sure that they become master servants of their destiny.
Sure.
Fight for the liberations, fought for their independence from neo-colonialism and colonialism until today where we are.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. That is a very rich introduction regarding Africa Liberation Day. Africa really passed through lots of exploitation, a lot of difficulties in the hand of the West and the other invaders. Really, before we dealt with the topic today about how Africa were able to regain their independence back from the colonial masters, let me just engage you on bit during the resistance, during the independent resistance, when African heroes, the founding fathers, stood up to regain their independence from the foreigners. What are some of the measures that were taken, or some of the strategies that were established across the Sahara here when founding fathers were trying to regain independence through the cruel leadership of the West? What are some of these tactics that they were using? Was it through resistance power or through dialogue and others?
Yes, we understand during, bringing an end to colonial rules in Africa.
Absolutely.
We will also we understand that there were so many measures. But again, we need to understand that during the times of the colonialism, there were several factors which European does not just come direct and penetrate in the continent. So they use measures in bringing Africans to their colonial line.
Absolutely.
They sign treaties of vassals, or we sign treaties of occupations or vassals. You understand? They also use the gunboat diplomacy as a threat.
Sure.
There were treaties of occupations too, that were signed.
Sure.
So most of these treaties that were signed, they are most of the time Africans that resisted against European imperialism. Those that told the world, or the African themselves, that we will never be brought into colonial subjugation.
Sure.
But they decided to resist. Either it was forced or through negotiation.
Sure.
Because the life of Samori Toure, we know the life of Ahmed Ben Bello around the Sokoto.
Sure.
We know Samori Toure, the Masina Caliphate, Alaji Umar Tal, and many, the like of Fode Kabadumbia, most of them resisted.
Absolutely.
And then though some of them are jihadists, and many other Africans who resisted also. Now, in the African liberation, though, we also understand that during the liberation, during the colonial era, the entire continent was not colonized, except for two countries. One, it was Ethiopia, which was ruled at that time by Haile Selassie.
Absolutely.
And then the other one, it was this guy. How do we call Liberia? Liberia was not found.
Exactly.
But most of the time, how Africans resisted European colonization was either they signed negotiations or they used force in order to free themselves from European imperialism.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Those were powerful heroes.
Yes.
That really, deserve to be recommended and always to be celebrated, because, they have rescued this nation from a very cruel leadership of the invaders, that is the foreign. But still now, we have seen some of these founding fathers like Kwame Nkrumah and others. They tried by all means to get Africa united after when some of the countries in Africa started having independence. I can remember, according to history, Ghana was among the first, countries to regain their independence, and then Kwame Nkrumah, was, among the pioneers that fought for country of Ghana and Africa at large. It was kind of, difficulties for him, for the mentality that he has for Africa, and comparing his mentality and other African leaders, that was kind of, some, misconception or conflicts.
Yes.
Because for him, he didn't only consider the independence of Ghana according to history, but he went for even to say even the independence of Ghana meant nothing if others countries remain unindependent. I believe there was some, struggle even within themselves. That's why at times even they contributed for his assassination and the assassination of many founding fathers. Do you have any idea regarding this betrayal from our own people?
Thank you very much again. What most of the time, we undergo through It has to do because of the subject matter, African Liberation Day.
Sure.
It's very much sensitive and alarming factor.
Exactly.
Whenever we talked about African Liberation Day, the founding fathers or the fallen heroes, those that fought for the liberation of the continent.
Sure.
At most of the times, we find that history does not celebrate that.
Sure.
Or are not well much recognized. The life of Dr. Kwame Nkrumah of Ghana,
absolutely,
who fought for the independence of Ghana and gained the independence in 1957,
sure,
being the first West African state to get its independence.
Exactly.
So you will realize in quotations of Malcolm X, who says that at most of the time you will find they will use one of you to kill one of you just to say it was one of you. Because Malcolm X was foremost sensitive about the dealings of the white man. So how they were so much tactics in using their interest to supersede the interest of any other individual.
Exactly.
And Kwame understood the fact that it was very important if African states were able to unite on the common goal. Had they, as he said, the independence of Ghana means nothing if the entire African continent are not independent. Had their common standing army, and have their common economic or their central bank with the AU today, the Organization of African Unity, after gaining back in 25th of May 1963, is still facing. So, because why was it necessary? At that time, you realize if we were having a strong army, if we were having a strong economy, or we have our strong central bank, where all African countries will be saving or depositing their money from, we will become economically strong, we will become politically strong, intellectually, we will be able to dictate our dealings. No foreign power will be able to intrude without our accept.
Absolutely.
So this is what Kwame have seen. But there were always the elsewhere colonizer who will monopolize and manipulate every dealings in order to within ourselves. And ensure that someone somewhere who is so hungry in nature, because we know most, if not, the country is rich in mineral resources, but the human indices is poor and then hungry. They will use some of us, some close allies, to get the other one.
And then that is why even if you look at the social media, especially in African pages regarding this day today, African Liberation Day, there are so many people that tend to argue that if this thing it doesn't work to be celebrated.
Absolutely.
Because the idea or the concept they have is that Africa, there is no freedom.
Absolutely.
Economically, we are dependent on other countries, the Europe and Asian countries.
Absolutely right.
Politically, we are not free because we are always being limited to certain stages.
Absolutely right.
Socially, we are invaded.
Absolutely.
And our culture has been tarnished in different ways.
Absolutely.
And that is why even if fellow Africans tends to celebrate this day, you see the argument, the counter argument within ourselves, that this day does not work to be celebrated. But in your own concept, should we continue celebrating this day, or should we try by all means that the subject of this day is well achieved before celebrating?
Thank you so much. I will want to say that we can only celebrate something that is achievable.
Absolutely.
If there is nothing that is have been achieved in the continent, we most of the time we should remind ourselves of the needs for us to be a nation or a continent.
Yes.
Are we really serious of what we preach?
Sure.
I think the leaders must always be aware of that being in a political position, so being in a leadership role, you have to fire back to your people.
Sure.
Every challenges. The reason why most of the time we find issues, the reason why the continent is not even able to realize its potentials, and many of its youths have become frustrated and desperate, leaving the continent with no intention of returning.
Absolutely.
It's because of the fact that the leaders that we have today are disappointing.
Definitely.
Why will we not celebrate? It does not worth celebration.
Sure.
Because you can only celebrate something that is been achieved.
Absolutely.
We do not achieve political independence, the Organization of African Unity, named after African Liberation Day,
Sure.
for which we say that Africa has been freed from colonial imperialism.
Control.
Are we politically free, independent?
Sure.
The question is has to come. Are you politically independent? Are you economically independent?
Of
Are you
course.
socially independent?
These are really,
Are we educationally independent?
of course. Yeah.
Now, center this at the educational sector. You remember during the colonial era, that the missionaries were able to introduce the Western type of education using the colonial masters, introducing a Western type of education that was only the 3 R's. That was the reading, the writing, and the arithmetic.
Sure.
They will teach you how to read, they will teach you how to write, and then they teach you how to calculate.
Exactly.
From ECD, now we say kindergarten student, the University of the Gambia, or any other universities around the African continent. These are basic English language or elementary learning techniques that are taught there.
Sure.
And that's why you find today people face the challenge that if you are studying medicine in a tertiary institution, you find it very difficult to prescribe or adopt to certain medicines because of the system.
Definitely.
Because why? The curriculums are designed by the people that colonize us.
Sure.
You speak the language of the colonial masters.
Exactly.
If you are colonized by the British, you speak the English. From the French, you speak the French. In the Portuguese, in Guinea-Bissau, you speak Portuguese. So the question is, since we are able to speak this, we are not independent.
Absolutely.
And we are not liberated.
At times,
And we can never be
at times it is difficult to say.
Thank you very much.
But the word
Yes.
independence has been, still now existing on numerous debates as to whether this thing is actually existing or not. But I will take you to education. Like, many Pan-Africanists have been even questioning, the kind of even curriculum that we are even using. After when we said that we are freedom, and then we are free from external control. If we look at even our education system, Mr. Sala,
Yes.
how it has been structured, you will see a person or a child from ECD 1. That individual be in school after 3rd year in ECD, from the lower basic to grade 6, from grade 6 to 9, from 10 to 12.
Yes.
After graduating, things that we consider as graduation at that basic level, you will tend to see that even these individuals even find it difficult even to do something for themselves at times. That's right. Their skills are limited, but because it appears that most of the things that we are learning is more theoretical.
Thank you very much.
We are not exposed to technological side, techniques issues, or vocational issues, whereby even if we apply a job tomorrow, we can create jobs for ourselves using our skills.
Absolutely.
I think even our curriculum, we need to look at it very well. Scrutinize it, question it, review it, and adopt a new curriculum.
Thank you very much.
What do you have to say about our curriculum?
Thank you very much, Mr. Ba, once again. And then when you look at the educational system, it's like a child play center.
Absolutely.
Yeah, because the reason why you said it's a child play, just take a close check, because we say charity begins at home.
Sure.
Take a close step of the Gambia educational system today. Compared to the outside world, when you enter into Europe and you enter in the United States of America, you go to some of the Asian countries. Not only Gambia per se, but talk of Guinea-Bissau, within the Guineas, within the tropics. When you look at the educational system and dwell deep into the African continent, you find that it's the same as him. You are only taught how to read, you only taught how to write, and you only taught how. We preach what the colonial master told us. And that's why the curriculum can go. Because ministers that most of the basic ministers that are responsible for education, Ministry of Basic and Secondary Education, and Minister of Higher Education, at most cases are only centered on theoretical aspect of it, not on the practical aspects. And that's why when government allocate budgets, it is not utilized. They will rather focus on preparing what they call workshops and trades than to go on practical aspects and see real life situations. What are the problems that face the teachers face at the educational ground.
Absolutely.
Are you there?
Absolutely.
So that's the reason. These are one of the things that we are faced with. They will tell you today if the curriculum was to be reviewed, scrutinized properly, and reviewed for there to be changes. It will cost a huge amount of money. But that's become so funny. How many budgets are allocated for the Ministry of Basic and Secondary Education? Or how many of the budgets that politicians will use to go around and campaign? But because why they are not interested, the gameplay has to end.
Sure.
If we really are serious with what we preach, because in a nation, for a nation or a society to develop, it needs two aspects.
Sure.
Some intellectuals have preached about that. Education and health. For there to be health, for health personnel to work properly, they must have land. Are you there? Thank you so much. Yes.
We are reminding our viewers that we are working on life GMPBT. This is also rethinking our mission to that I believe at the Gambia. But every other citizen in this country, believe that the dialogue is the only way that we can build our Pamba still now on these special day accounts, that is African
Yes.
I will tell you a bit on the historical side. I know that you are frozen on history. I understand that you are very good when it comes to African history.
Yes.
To back to center our issue of discussion at this moment on the Gambian politics and example. When we became our independence in 1965 from the leadership of Sandor and Mayor, I think him and others, like Edward Francis Shaw,
Yeah.
to make sure that today we will be discussing
Thank you very much.
correctly happens.
Yes, I must congratulate them. Those are fallen heroes and peoples that we look up to. More especially the life of Edward Francis Small. History is always celebrating and will continue to celebrate the man who served as a watchdog in the political landscape of the Gambia. Of course, Small being one of the Gambian educational allies at that time during the 80s and the 90s. He was very much instrumental when it comes to nationalism. You remember nationalism was also a key factor that led many people to radical transform, the system. They did not want, and it was Francis Small was one of the key pioneers to see that we do not want the British colonial rule. Came back as early as 1889. We were told that at that time Batos was founded in 1816 by Sir Alexander Grant. When he has founded Batos, the indirect road systems, as we are told, we've been colonized by the British, started in northern Nigeria under Lord Frederick Lugard. Then later on, it spread into many British colonies. Now, what happened in 1889? There has already been what we call, because the indirect rule system or the dual mandate was only centered in making sure that we use African culture and tradition must be maintained while we use the traditional rulers to access their resources. Yeah, so that is what happened, and that's why there were two traveling commissioners that were established as early as 1889 when the English language was already introduced in the educational system. So you remember the Sitwell was among them, and then the other one was Silver. So these were appointed to, or taxed to go and venture into the hinterland. Let me use the word hinterland in the hinterlands of the Gambia to tell the traditional rulers who were serving as puppets to the colonial masters that they were answerable to the governor, who was also a subservient to the Queen of England at that time. So even after gaining independence, it was Francis Small being more instrumental in fighting for the rights. But before attainment of independence, we had known that it was Francis Small died. Are you there? So what happens that during the time of fighting for independence in 1965, even after 1965, the like of Sadauda, the Marlborough meeting, is what led to the independence of the Gambia. But I will not call it for independence. Independence happens after Gambia become after 24 April 1970. Because since after 1965, 5 years after, the Queen or the governor was still the representative, was still in the Gambia and was doing his administrative function. And the people of the Gambia were answerable still to the governor, who in turn represent the Queen of England. Yeah.
And that is why many activists in the Gambia.
Yeah.
It should have been the Gambian tribe that only came there in 1997
Yes.
instead of 1965.
Absolutely right.
And just, statements that are made by activists, whether they are Usa.
Absolutely right.
This year, we consider the Gambia became their movement in 1965. So there are elements that justify their state. And, we all tend to believe, because, it is so ironic when a party is considered to be independent, when the very one who should give to independence still exists to America and dictate you on how to do, say,
Yes.
how to do.
Absolutely.
That is why many activists, believe that
The Gambia
Ghana in 1970
done in 1965.
I
Right.
don't believe that.
Yes.
Yes, but let's consider some of the tactics that we are used, especially that here was practicing. I believe, at times, it's not being mentioned much, African, especially history, with regards to Gambian farming to the time we get our independence. They tend to mention so many words, like, Sada majority, and 45. I believe these guys talk about
Yes.
how to be more.
Yes.
So, some people argue that it was more important, but I believe, these are the level, although the black man, but still with what the solution.
That's absolutely right. That's absolutely right. When you come to, thank you very much. When you come to constitutional development, the constitutional development started as early as the 1850s. Coming towards 1850s down to 1947. Sumul was no exception in trying to make sure that radical transformations. Remember that the NCBUA, some will call it, his chapter was also brought in the Gambia due to the influence of Edward Francis Small, and that one of the factors that is hindering our political development today, because history failed to celebrate that leaders that have stood firm to fought for the rights and liberations of the Gambians today are not recognized even at independent level, for which I accepted. Now coming towards how tactful that this man was able to. One way we remember history tells us again that he introduced what we call, since at that time the Gambia we were lacking, many educational elites. It was the educational aspects of many Gambians was too low. And that was one of the factors that hindered the nations gaining its independence as early as the 1960s. But Sumol was very much instrumental. He introduced newspapers. One was the Gambia Outlook and the Senegambia Reporter. The Mirror, the Gambia Intelligentsia were all one of the newspapers that he initiated in order for the protectorate and for the Gambians to be able to read and then be sensitized about the bad colonial activities that were taking place. More especially, he was centered on the farmers, because farming was a very key factor. He even led to the in the establishment of trade unions. One of these trade unions is the Batos Trade Union, which he established. We have the Gambia Workers Union, and then we have the Gambia, was it the Teachers Union, right? So these are all unions that were so instrumental. Sumo did not only stop there, he was the first Gambians also to be elected into the Legislative Council during the colonial era. But that sideline the Gambia into two halves, because we remember that the Gambia was divided into what we call the Crown Colony and the Protectorate. So it's like the Protectorates were peoples that were not within the Combos area, even some that were within the Combos area, part of them were sidelined. So it was the Composite Mary and then the Greater Banjul administration. But the Protectorate people, they are not allowed to vote. Until then, he have to fight to make sure that these were people also who have the same franchise or the legal rights to vote and to be voted for in office. So the man tried. I think Next time history is to celebrate or independence is to be
Only then we realize what should be done, because we also need to compete with the other world.
That's
Because we believe, we have all the potentials, we have the resources, we are the richest, continent on earth. But yet, these are things, that we are not realizing.
That's absolutely.
Because I don't know whether it's the education system or the way we are being controlled or not.
Absolutely.
But I believe one day, things will get better. And I believe, we have many Pan-Africans that are trying to unite again, trying to come together in order to build a new project.
Absolutely.
There's already Agenda 2063.
Yes.
And, it talks about a lot about Africa. And we only hope that agenda would be implemented one day. And when it's implemented, I believe, things will slowly change.
That's
But
right.
before then, we will conclude, by discussing few on the new method that we should. What advice would you have for the younger generations? We have many students pursuing history. They understood African history very well, where we were, what we are, and what this continent can afford. I believe the younger generation should try by all means to adopt, to see the truth about what should we do as young people.
Absolutely. I think I have so many factors with regards to the younger generation, for which even I and you are included in it. One of these factors, it has to do with, in fact, what I most of the time suggest to my people,
Yes.
that civic education must
always be a voluntary and a compulsory subjects that should be taught non-students and to students within the educational sector. And even if you are not an educational sector, these are things that I think government should ensure that projects are put in line to meet our communities and ensure people are sensitized about civil education. To love for one's nation, love for your country is very key. Coming to the educational sector, the curriculum also need to be revisited. We need to revisit the curriculum because what you are taught in primary school, in junior secondary, and then in senior school, coming towards college and universities are quite different. Sometimes when you come to tertiary institution, you tend to re-debate. You debate on your own. Am I going in the right direction? Because this is what I was taught, and today I'm seeing differently. I think the curriculum needs to be revisited again. And then youths of the nation, youths of the continent. I believe we own this nation, we own this continent. And it is in our utmost that we can make sure, as one time quoted by John F. Kennedy, the former American president, who says that the future promise of every nation can be directly measured by the protective presence of their youths. So youths of the country, the Gambia, and youths of Africa, we stand at a high chance in rebuilding the continent for a better future. Yeah.
that is depending on the soul.
Yes.
It will bring our nation so that only then
Yes.
we should, interrogate our minds, tackle critical questions like our little book used to say. We must ask ourselves questions. Things that we should do as part of these questions. We deserve an answer to them. Not a freedom that is just, it works. Yeah. But in a nutshell, we have just quickly concluded this show today.
Yes.
I will allow you to have.
Yes.
I understand that you have well, knowledge and African history. We always love to have you here.
Yes.
I will allow you to conclude by summarizing the quality.
Thank you so much. I just wish time was going at a high speedometer. But it's great having me here, and I know it will be time to time coming having me here again. But actually, all cannot be said today, and we understood that if the principle of law of nature, that if land is to be served, that it is in the minds of the man also must understand that food it must be served and food must be eaten at the right time. So that's the reason everything has a starting and it has ended. So today we are here, and tomorrow or someday in the future, we will come back again and then touch on, issues, alarming issues, concerns with the continent and the nation at large. So I thank all of you. I thank the viewers, and then the youths that are also watching outside war, and then thank you too, Pa Ismail, for having me being here today. Until then, I greet you all. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sama. Indeed, it was a fruitful discussion.
Yeah.
This is your show that used to be live at GMEB every Saturday and Wednesday, rebuilding our nation through dialogue. I believe the dialogue is the only key that can help us to reunite us and then rebuild us, so that at least we can compete with the rest of the world. On that note, I thank you so much, dear viewers, and then to share our link, you can subscribe and then like our show. Until then, follow us for more programs ahead.